and export it to all your environments here. Changing your shell prompt. Your shell prompt, another environment variable here, provides you with useful information such as the user you are operating as and or the directory in which you are currently working. So the default shell prompt in Kali takes the following here: user here, username, host name, and current directory. So if you are working with the root user, this translates to this, for example, root at Kali and current directory. So you can change the name in the default shell prompt by setting the value for the ps1 variable. So the ps1 variable has a set of placeholders for information you want to display in the prompt, including the name of the current user, the host name, and the base name of the current working directory. So this is very useful if you happen to have shells on multiple systems or are logged on as multiple accounts. So by setting different users and host names values for different shells or accounts, you can tell at a glance who you are and what your current system is. So let's have a little fun and change the prompt in your terminal. For example, you could enter here ps1 here, for example, world's best hacker here, and hashtag here. As you can see here now, our command prompt is like that here. So now every time you use this terminal, you will be reminded that you are the world's best hacker, but any subsequent terminal you open will still have the default command prompt, because the ps1 variable only holds values for your terminal session. Remember, until you export a variable, it is only good for that session. So if you really like this new command prompt and want to see it in every terminal, you need to export it. So like that, export ps1, but I will not do it in this here. So this will make the change, so change the permanent across all sessions. How about a little more fun here? So say you really want your terminal to look like the Windows CMD prompt. So let's actually, it's quite boring actually here. So say you really want your terminal to look like a Windows CMD prompt. So in this case, you could change the prompt name C and keep the W, have the prompt show your current directory as here, for example, export ps1, actually not ps1, and here this will be cmd here, so we C, and here we will write W for directory here, as you can see here. Here, like that. Or we can do it, for example, CD downloads, like that. So having your prompt show your current directory can be generally useful, so particular to a beginner. So it's something to consider when you change your ps1 variable. We can change path as well. So one of the most important variables in your environment is path variable. Actually, it's boring actually. So let's close it. So one of the most important variables in your environment is your path variable, so which controls where on your system your shell will look for commands you enter, such as a cd, ls, or echo here. So most commands are located in sbin or bin directory here, like user local sbin or user local bin here. If the bash file doesn't find the command in one of the directories in your path variable, it will return the command not found, like that, for example. Command not found here, like that. So even if that command does exist in a directory, not in your path. So you can find out which directories are stored in your path variable by using echo and $sign and path. As you can see here, this is our path here. These are the directories where your terminal will search for any command. When you enter ls, for example, the system knows to look in each of these directories for the ls command, and when it finds ls, the system executes it like that, ls. So each directory is separated by colon, and you don't forget to add the dollar symbol in content path here, as you can see here. So we can add to the path variable here. So you can probably see why it is important to know what is in your path variable. If you downloaded and installed a new tool, let's say, for example, new hacking tool here, into the root new hacking tool directory, you could only use commands from that tool when you are in that directory, because the directory is not in the path variable. Every time you wanted to use that tool, you would first have to navigate root new hacking tool, which is a bit inconvenient if you want to use tool often. So to be able to use this new tool for any directory, you need to add the directory to holding this tool to your path variable. To add new hacking tool to your path variable, enter this command path here, equals here $path and two dot here column here, and for example root new hacking tool here. We added path variable here, so this assigns the original path variable plus this folder here directory to the new path variable. So the variable contains everything it did before plus new tool directory. If you examine the contents of the path variable, again, you should see that this directory has been appended to the end of the path as shown here, echo path here. Oops. Echo path. As you can see, we added this our root new hacking tool here. So now you can execute new hacking tool applications from anywhere on your system, rather than having navigate to its directory. The bash shell will look in all directories listed for your new tool. So how not to add a path variable? So one mistake commonly made by new Linux users is assigning a new directory such as a root new hacking tool directly to the path variable like that. Path here, root new directory, root new hacking tool. So this will, if you use this command, your path variable will only contain the root new hacking tool. So your path variable will not contain this, and you will delete all of these path variables and only add this useless folder to it. So and no longer contain the system binaries directories such as bin and swin. So after doing this command, you cannot use ls, cd or any commands here. So when you then go to use any of these commands, you will receive the error command not found here. So remember that you want to append to the path variable, not replace it. So if you are in doubt, save the contents of the variable somewhere before you modify it. So we can create a user-defined variable as well. So you can create your own custom user-defined variables in Linux by simply assigning a value to a new variable that you name. So this may be useful when you are doing some more advanced shell scripting, or find you are often using a long command that you get tired of typing over and over. So the syntax is straightforward. Enter the name of your variable followed by assignment symbol and then the value to put in the variable as here, for example, my new variable, and here, and for example, hacking is the most valuable skill set in the 21st century. Here. So this assigns a string to the variable my new variable. So to see the value in that variable, use the echo command and the dollar content symbol with the variable name, as we did earlier here, my new variable here. As you can see, we printed this. So just like our system environment variables, user-defined variables must be exported to persist to new sessions. So if you want to delete this new variable or any variable, use the unset command, unset my new variable here. So now let's echo, and as you can see, we have no new variable here. So because we deleted this variable with unset command and after pressing echo for printing to terminal, we can't see it because there is no variable here after setting this variable here. So lastly, you might find environment variables foreign, but it's worth getting to know them. So they control how your working environment in Linux looks, acts, and feels. So you can manage these variables to tailor your environment to your needs by changing them, exporting them, and even creating your own, as we did in this case. So in some cases, they may be useful for covering your tracks as a hacker. Compressing and archiving. Hackers often need to download and install new softwares, as well as send and download multiple scripts and large files. These tasks are easier if these files are compressed and combined into a single file. If you come from the Windows world, you probably recognize the concept from the zip format, so which combines and compresses files to make them smaller for transferring over the internet or removable media. So there are many ways to do this in Linux, and we look at few of the most common tools for doing so in this lecture. So we'll also look at the dd command, which allows you to copy entire drives, including deleted files, onto those drivers, actual drives, not drivers. So what is compression? So the interesting subject of compression could fill an entire course by itself. But for this course, we only need a rudimentary understanding of the process. Compression, as the name implies, makes data smaller, thereby requiring less storage capacity and making the data easier to transmit. For your purposes as beginning hacker, it will suffice to categorize compression as either loosey or looseless. So loosey compression is very effective in reducing the size of files, but the integrity of the information is lost. So in other words, the file after compression is not exactly the same as the original. So this type of compressions works great for graphics, video, and audio files, where a small difference in the files hardly noticeable, like MP3, MP4, and PNG and GPH are also all lossless compression algorithms. So if a pixel in a PNG file or a single note in a MP3 file is changed, your ear is unlikely to notice the difference. Though of course music aficionados will say that they can definitely tell the difference between an MP3 and uncompressed FLAC file. So the strength of loosey compressions are its efficient and effectiveness, but the compression ratio is very high, meaning that the resulting file is significantly smaller than the original. However, loosey compressions is unacceptable when you are sending files or software and data integrity is circular. For example, if you're sending a script or document, the integrity of the original file must be retained when it is decompressed. So this lecture focuses on the lossless type of compression, which is available for a number of utilities and algorithms. Unfortunately, lossless compression is not as efficient as loosely compression as you might imagine, but for the hacker, integrity is often far more important than the compression ratio. Tearing files together. So usually the first thing you do when compressing files is to combine them into an archive. In most cases, when archiving files, you will use the tar command here. So let's open here. So you will use tar command. So tar stands tar here. So tar stands tape archive here. So a reference to the prehistoric days of computing when systems used tape to store data. This means tar here. So the tar command creates a single file from many files, which is then referred to as an archive, tar file, or tarball. For instance, you say you had 3 scripts files like the here, for example, touch here, touch here, for example, tech beans 1.c hash here, touch tech beans 2.python here, tech actually touch tech beans 3 dot here, for example, out here. As you can see, we created files, but they are empty files. So if you navigate the directory that holds them and perform the long listing, you can clearly see the files and details you'd expect. So including the size of the files here, as you can see here. ls, la. Here actually ls, l is okay here. So as you can see, we created 3 files. Let's actually copy them to folder here, and let's change it with our text editor. Actually, let's example proj here, and let's copy these all here, and here let's open here and put them put inside them something here, just an example c hash file here. Here, as you can see, we created a lot of it here, and let's open this as well. Python file here, as you can see here, and let's open here and just that out file sometimes uses for C compiled C scripts here, or programs here. Yeah, let's as you can see here, we have a new example profile here. So cd example here, and lsl here. As you can see here, there's a different files. So let's say you want to send all 3 of these files to another hacker you are working with on a project. So you can combine them and create a single archive file using tar command here, tar cvf. So we are entering the name of our file here, techbeans project.tar here, and we are assigning our files here without comma here. So first file here, techbeans 1c hash, techbeans 3 out here, and take beans to Python here. Oops. As you can see here, we compiled, we created tar file. So let's break down this command to better understanding. So the archiving command is a tar, and we are using it here with 3 options, as you can see here. So the C option here means create. V here, which stands for variables and is optional. You can, it's not mandatory here. So it's for outputting these files, which files is created in tar files. And F command here means write the following file here. So the last option will also work for reading from files. Then we give the new archive the file name you want to create from 3 scripts here. As you can see here, we named it the TechBeans project here, tar. Of course, in full, this command will take all 3 files here and create a single file. So here TechBeans project tar out of them. So when you do another long listing of the directory, you will see that it also contains a new tar file here, as you can see here. So note the size of the tarball is here 399,360 here. So when the 3 files are archived, tar uses significant overhead to perform this operation, whereas the sum of 3 files before archiving here, let's calculate it here. So we will calculate these 3 files here. Let's see it. The first TechBeans 1 C hash here plus 31863 here plus lastly is our route file 357304. As you can see here, our type file is 393946 here. So but in here 399,360. So this tarball here actually, so this is greater than, so this is greater than our total of sum of these files. So in other words, the archiving process has added almost let's minus here or here minus 399360 here. So as you can see here, the tar process is added almost 5414 bytes to it. So although this overhead can be significant with small files, it becomes less and less significant with larger and larger files. So we can display those files from the tarball without extracting them by using the tar command within the t-content list switch here, tar tvf here and TechBeans project here. Actually, let's see how many minutes we have. Yes. So can you see it's actually? Yes. So here we see our 3 original files and their original sizes. So you can then extract those files from the tarball using tar command within the x, which is extract switch as shown here. For example, tar xvf here, xvf here. Let's first ls la here. So now tar for comprehending these files here, xvf here, and TechBeans project. As you can see, we extracted these files here. So we extracted these files. So let's delete these files here, and I will see how to extract it here. As you can see here, we extracted these files from techpins project.tar file here, as you can see here. So here, because you are still using the V switch, this command will show which files are being extracted in the output here. If you want to extract the files and to do so slightly, meaning without showing any output, you can simply remove these V, which is verbose command switch here. So here xf and nothing output, but our files still extracted. So the files have been extracted into the current directory. You can do a long listing on the directory to double check. So note that by default, if an extracted file already exists, tar will remove the existing file and replace it with the extracted file here. So in later lecture, I will show you compressing the file. So I'm waiting you in later lecture. Now we have one archived file, but the file is bigger than the sum of the original files. So what if you want to compress these files for ease of transport? So Linux has several commands capable of creating compressed files. So we will look at these here. gzip, which uses the extension tar here. Actually, gzip here. Gzip uses extension tar gz or tgz here, like that. So we have bzip2 here, bzip2 here, which uses extension tar bz2 here. Actually, bz is not separate. And we have compress here, and this is that uses the tar z here, like that. So these all are capable of compressing our files, but they use different compression algorithms and have different compression ratios. So therefore, we will look at each one and what it's capable of. In general, compress is the fastest. But the resultant files are larger. So bzip2 here is the slowest, but the resultant files are the smallest. And gzip falls somewhere in between fast compress and bzip2. The main reason you, as budding hacker, you should know all three methods is that when accessing other tools, you will run into various types of compression. Therefore, this section shows you how to deal with the main methods of compression. So compression with gzip here I will show you. So let's try GNU zip here first, and as it's the most commonly used compression utility in Linux, so it's popular in Linux. So you can compress our techpins project tar file by entering here, for example, let's delete our tar file here. Let's complete new projects here. Gzip here, techpins and one turner operator here. So by entering here, and let's enter and let ls, and as you can see here, we gzipped it. Actually, so as you can see here, and let's open here. So we have ch file here, and we have actually, let's return our techpins project tar from trash here, because I will do some example here. So let's unzip it as well here, and techpins and techpins1 here, and techpins, delete this techpins here. So we can compress this this compressed file too, but it's actually not compressed, it's just tarred, and the file is not reduced here. So we can reduce this file here, for example ls, as you can see. Let's copy it here, cp techbins project here, techbins project, and techbins project here, techbins project here, copy, or just like that, copy dot tar here, ls. So we created copy of it. So let's gzip our techbins project here, and techbins project tar. So as you can see here, techbins project tar here, tar gz, so we copied it. So now lsl here. So as you can see here, our file size is reduced here by significant amount here. So notice that we used before of it, we used wildcard operator here. Let me show you here. So this tells Linux that the command should apply to any file that begins with techbins with any file extension. You will use similar notation for the following examples. When we do long listing on the directory, we can use techbins tar has been replaced by here techbins project tar to techbins project tar gz here. We created another file like that, just a copy here. So as you can see, file size is use significant amount, almost. Let's calculate it. 399360 and Y2. As you can see here, the file size is sized actually 178 times. So we can then compress that file by using the gunzip here command. Gunzip, short for gnu unzip command here. G unzip here. So G unzip techbins project tar gz here, and let's do it ls here. So we unzipped here. As you can see, there's a no gz extension of it here, and our file size is returned the same here. So once uncompressed, the file is no longer saved with the tar gz extension, but with the tar extension instead. So also notice that it's returned to its original size here. And try doing a long list to confirm this. It's worth nothing than the gzip can also be used to extract zip files here. So we can compress, as I said earlier, bzip2 here. Another of the other widely used compression utilities in Linux is bzip2, which works similarly to gzip but has better compression ratios, meaning that the resulting file will even be smaller than that here. Actually, we closed our calculator, right? Yes, we closed our calculator and calculator here. So now we will zip these files again here. So bzip2 techbins project .tar here, and lsla here. As you can see here, it's almost 488 bytes here. So now let's calculate it. 360 and divide by 488 here. As you can see, there is almost 818 times our file is smaller than our original file. So but in previous case it was 100, more than 117 here, 70 here. So when you do a long listing, you can see the bzip has compressed the file just down to so many bytes here. Also note that the file extension is now tar bz2 here. So to uncompress the compressed file, use the b unzip2 and TechPins project tar bz2 here, and let's ls here, and as you can see our file size is here. So we can use the compress command as well. I want to show you lastly here. So the compressed finally you can use the compressed to compress the file here. This is probably the least commonly used compression utility, but it's easy to remember. To use it, simply enter the compress followed by the file name, for example techpins project .tar here, and let's lsl here, and as you can see it's not much of compression here. As I said earlier, 399360 divided by 12491 here, and as you can see it's smaller than just 31 times here. So not that the compression utility reduce size of file here. Also note that the file extension now is tar z here with uppercase z. So to decompress the same file, just press you just use uncompressed here, uncompress here, and your file name techpins project.z here, and lsl here. So you can also use the gnu unzip command with files that have been compressed with compress command here. Just keep in mind. So we can create a bit by bit or physical copies of the storage devices as well here. Just within the world of information security and hacking, one Linux archiving command stands above the rest in its usefulness. So the dd command makes a bit by bit copy of a file system, or even an entire hard drive here. So this means that even deleted files are copied. Yes, it's important to know that your deleted files may be recoverable here, making for easy discovery and recovery here. So deleted files will not be copied with the most logical copying utility, such as the cp here. And once a hacker has owned a target system, the dd command will allow them to copy the entire hard drive or a storage device to their system. So in addition, those people whose job is to catch hackers, namely forensic investigators, will likely use this command to make a physical copy of the hard drive with deleted files and other artifacts that might be useful for finding evidence against the hacker. It's critical to note that the dd command shall not be used for typical day-to-day copying of files and storage devices because it's very slow here. Other commands to do the job faster and more efficiently. So it is truly excellent when you need a copy of a storage device without file system or other logical structures, such as in a forensic investigation here. So dd if is the input file here, input file here, and off is the output file. So if you wanted to make the physical copy of your flash drive, assuming your flash drive is STB here, and then input file is going to be dev STB. This is your flash drive, and output file is the file which you want to copy bit by bit your flash drive here. In this case, for example, it will be home here, Kali, and our flash copy secret here. And let's let's break down this command here. So dd, your physical copy command. So if designates your input file, and with dev STB is representing your flash drive in div category directory, and off here designates your output file, and here home Kali flash copy secret here. is the name of the file you want to copy the physical copy to. For more complex explanation of the Linux system design item of drives, it will be discussed in later lectures here. So Linux has a number of commands to enable you to combine and compress your files for easier transfer. So for combining files, tar is the command of choice, and you have at least 3 utilities for compressing files. These are gzip, bzip2, and compress. So all with different compression ratios. So the dd command goes above and beyond. It enables you to make a physical copy of storage devices without the logical structure such as a file system here, allowing you to recover such artifacts as deleted files. If you are coming from Windows environment, the way that Linux represents and manages storage devices will look rather different to you. So you already seen that the file system has no physical representation of the drive like C, D, or E system in Windows, but rather has a file tree structure, starts with slash at the top here, or the root here of it. So this chapter takes a look at how Linux represents storage devices such as hard drives, flash drives, and other storage devices. We first look how additional drives and other storage devices are mounted upon the file system, leading up to the root here, and root directory mounting in its context, simply meaning attaching drives or disk to the file system to make them accessible to the operating system. So for you as a hacker, it's necessary to understand the file and storage device management system, both you on your own system and out on the system of your target. So hackers commonly use external media to load data, hacking tools, or even their operating system. Once you are on your target system, you need to understand what you are working with, where to find confidential or other critical files, how to mount a drive to the target, and whether and where you can put those files on your system. So we will cover all of these topics, so plus how to manage and monitor storage devices in these lectures. Actually, I think this lecture will be 1 or 2 lectures, so no more than 2 lectures here in file system about Linux. So actually, I want to show you an image from internet here. So we begin with directory known as dev here. DuckDuckGo here. So we begin with the directory known as dev, which you probably already noticed in the directory structure. So dev is short for device, and every device in Linux is represented by its own file within dev directory. So let's start by working with dev, but firstly I want to show you the Linux file structure. Linux file structure here. Can you see my screen actually? Yes, right? Yes. So here I want to show you a little representation for presentation for better understanding here. Here. Actually, it's good too here. So I choose 2 pictures for you here. So let's open this as well here. So here, as you can see here, we have the root directory, all of these folders here, and we have boot. As I said to you earlier, all things in Linux is file. So we have boot directory, bin, dev, etc, home, lib, lost found, media, mount, opt, sbin, serve, tmp. We have user, which is the usernames of our users, and we have another local here as well, and we have var here. So boot, as written here, boot is a system files including kernel. Bin is binary for user. Dev is device files and drivers. etc here is host specific configuration file. Home is user home directories. Lib is shared libraries, kernel modules here. Lost fund is unknown files. So media is here. Mount points for removable media. MNT, mount point for temporary file systems. We have OPT here is optional software packages. SBIN here, system binaries. SRV here, data for services provided by the system here. TMP, temporary storage space. User applications like source code, images, and etc. We have in user, we have local share, sbin, bin, and lib folders inside of it. So local is installed for local user, share is config files, graphics for user applications, sbin is essential system applications that for user here, and we have bin, which is user commands, and lib is shared libraries by user. So we have, lastly, I want to talk about you is var here. Var, we have var run, log, tmp here. So var here, variable data used by the system. Run is info about current boot session. Log is log files. Log is log files. And tmp, long-term or large temporary files here. So we have another representation here as well that I want to show you is a boot dev here. We talk about them. And as you can see, we have this scheme here. So first, I want to talk about is the dev directory here. So Linux has a special directory that contains files actually representing each attached device. So the appropriate name is dev directory here. So actually, let's here. So we are the top of our file system here. As we discussed earlier, bin, boot, dev, etc, home, lib, like media, mnt, root, run. If you are not using Kali or Ubuntu or another system, yeah, these folders might different on your system here. So as your first introduction, navigate the dev directory, cd dev here, and ls here. So as you can see here, we have so many folders in it. So I will explain all of this here. So you should see something like that, or let's lsla here, as you can, or ls, actually lsl is okay. So as you can see here, we have so many folders in it. tte here, we have port here, null, part port, pc, aux here. So I will talk about all of them. So the devices are displayed in an alphabetical order by default. So you may recognize some of the devices such as CD-ROM here, CD-ROM here, CD-ROM here, and we have CPU here as well, charge core here, CPU DMA latency here. So but others have rather cryptic names here. So each device on your system is represented by a file in the dev directory here. We are working with it. So including devices you have probably never used or even not realized they existed here. So the of Chengyu2, so there is a device file waiting to be used for it. So if you scroll down a screen a bit, you should see more listings of devices of particular interest. Are the devices starts with SDA or STB here, is it like SDA, STB, and other here, as you consider SD1, SDA, SD1, SD2, SDA1, 5 actually. So SDA, SDA1, SDA2, and SDA5. So which are the hard drive and partitions used, and USB flash drive and partitions here. So I have not attached USB drive to this system. So if you attached a USB system, I think it will show you STB here. So STB1 or STB2. So how Linux represents storage devices? So Linux uses logical labels for drives that are then mounted on the file system. So these logical labels will vary depending on where the drives are mounted, meaning the same hard drive might have different labels at different times, depending on where and when it's mounted. Originally, Linux represented a floppy drives. Remember this, right? So as FD0 and hard drives as HDA. So you will still occasionally see these drives representation on legacy Linux system, but today most floppy drives are gone. Thank goodness here. And even so, all legacy hard drives that use the IDA or EIDA is interface are still represented in the form of HDA, so newer serial ATA or SATA interface drives, and small computer system interface SCSI hard drives are represented as SDA here. So drives are sometimes split up into sections known as partitions, which are represented in the labeling system with numbers, as you will see here. So when systems have more than one hard drive, Linux simply names them serially by incrementing the last letter in alphabetical order. So the first drive is SDA, so this means I have one drive because I don't have SDB here. So and the second drive is SDB if you have USB, and third drive is STC, and so on. So the serial letter after SD is often referred to as the major number. So we have drive partitions here as well. Let's look at actually. So I will stop video here. So I'm waiting you in next lecture. Some drives can split into partitions in order to manage and separate information. So for instance, you may want to separate your hard drives so that your swap file, home directory, and root directory are all on separate partitions. So you may want to do this for a number of reasons, including to share resources and to relax the default permissions. So Linux labels each partition with a minor number that comes after the device designation. So this way, the first partition on the SATA will be SDA1. I want to show you here. L here. So let's find SDAs here. This which is my hard drive. If you had a second device attached to your computer, you will have SDB, SDC, SDD, or SDF, like that. How many files? That many SD and alphabet you will have. This way, the minor number, as you can see here, that this way, the first partition on the SATA drive will be SDA1. So the second partition will be then the SDA2, third SDA3, and so on here. So at times you may want to view the partitions on your Linux system to see which ones you have and how much capacity is available in each. You can do this by using fdisk utility. And fdisk utility, you can do this by fdisk utility and using L switch with fdisk lists all the partitions here, because we need give sudo permissions to this, sudo, and type your Kali password here. As you can see here, we have we printed all of our disks here. So as you can see here, the devices SDA1, SDA2, and SDA5 are listed in the first stanza. So these three devices make up the virtual disks from my virtual machine, which is 80 gigabyte drive with three partitions here, including the swap partitions, and which acts like a virtual RAM, similar to page files in Windows. So swap partitions acts like a virtual RAM. It's similar to Windows, like Windows using page partition for virtual RAM, right? So this web partition is using when RAM capacity is exceeded. So if you scan down here to the third stanza, if you have external drive, you will see a second device output designed by SDB or STC here. So this can be your flash drive or anything here. So actually we can see our drives here with partition gparted application here, and you can run gparted like that and enter your password here. In my case it's Kali by default. As you can see, we can see our devices actual partitions as well. This is the one device here attached to it, and as you can see here we have 80 gigabyte actual 79 gigabyte main system root system. The second is extended, and the third is Linux swap, and 1 megabyte is unallocated. Here as you can see there is a dev STA. I have one hard disk and not external hard disk attached to it. So something else to note about the naming of the files in the dev directory is that the first positions contains either C or B. So you can see here, for example, LSL here. As you can see here, C or B here. We will have, as you can see, there's a B here. So what this means? So this letter represents the two ways that devices transfer data in and out. So the C stands for character, and these devices are known, as you might expect, as a character devices. So external devices that interact with the system by sending and receiving data character by characters such as mice or keyboards are character devices. The B stands for the second type, block devices. They communicate in blocks of data multiple bytes at a time and include devices like hard drives and DVD drives and etc. These drives require higher speed data throughput and therefore send and receive data in blocks, many characters or bytes at a time. So once you know whether a device is character or a blocks device, you can easily get more information about it, as you will see next. So list block devices and information with LSBL key. LSBL key. So Linux, the Linux command lsbl key, short for list block here. List block here. This command lists some basic information about each block device listed in the dev directory. So the result is similar to the output from the fdisk L here. So, but it will also display the devices with multiple partitions in a kind of tree. So showing each device with its partition as breaches here, like that, and does not require root privileges to run. So as you can see, we have SDA and SR0 here. So the output includes the floppy, if you have floppy drive here, FT0, and DVD drive SR0. So this is my DVD drive here. So this is simply holdover for legacy systems. So we can also see information on the mount point of the drive here. As you can see, there is mount point swap, and this is the root directory, which is 79, almost 18 gigabytes here. And note that the hard drive SDA1 mounted here, root, and the flash drive, if you have, it will mount to media here. So you will see more the significance of this in next lectures, actually in next minutes here. So mounting and unmounting. Most modern operating systems, including most new versions of Linux, auto-mount storage devices when they are attached. So meaning the new flash drive or hard drive is automatically attached to the file system. For those new to Linux, the mounting might be foreign subject. So A storage device must be first physically connected to the file system and then logically attached to the file system in order for the data to be made available to the operating system. In other words, even if the device is physically attached to the system, it's not necessarily logically attached and available to the operating system. So the term mount is a legacy from the early days of computing, when storage tapes before hard drives had to be physically mounted to the computer system. Think of these big computers with spinning tape drives. You might have seen old science fiction movies here. As I mentioned, the point in the directory tree where drives are attached is known as the mount point. So the two main mounts in Linux are MNT here. Actually, let's what happened? Oops, I'm sorry. Display. Here. I'm sorry, 1 minute, please. Okay. Okay, we fixed it. So let's see the here. Let's mount this. When as I mentioned, the point in the directory tree where the devices are attached is known as the mount point. So the two main mount points in Linux are MNT and media here. Media. As a general rule, internal hard drives are mounted at MNT, and external USB drives such as flash drives and external USB drives are mounted at media. Through technically and directory can be used. So here I'm using VirtualBox. Actually, not. I'm using VMware here. So I will create a new USB flash drive here. USB controller, hard disk drive. This will be okay. Create virtual disk. It will be 0.5 gigabyte. Store disk as a single file. Okay. So in some versions of Linux, you need to mount a drive manually in order to access its content. So this is a skill worth learning to mount a drive on the file system. Use the mount command. So the mount point for the device should be an empty directory. If you mount a device on a directory that has subdirectories and files, the mount device will cover the contents of the directory, so making them invisible and unavailable. So the mount the new hard drive, for example STB, mount STB1 at the MNT directory. You will enter here a mount dev STB STAR STB1 and mount MNT directory. So for mounting, you will enter this following. So to mount MNT, you have to use sudo here, and STB1 is not existed because it's I have not entered an STB device here, or external drive, or a hard drive here. So the hard drive should be available for access. So if you want to mount a flash drive STC1 to media directory, you will enter this command here. So we can unmount our devices as well. So if you are coming from a Mac or Windows background, so you probably unmounted the drive without knowing it. So before you remove a flash drive from your system, you as you remember, when right click on eject, it to keep causing damage to the files stored in the device. So eject is just another word for unmount here. So similar to mount command, you can unmount a second hard drive by entering unmount. Actually not unmount, you mount here uh, followed by the entry of the device in the div directory here, dev stb1 for example. And similar to mount command, you can unmount a second hard drive by entering unmount command here. For example, I entered stb1 here. And then click enter, and as you can see, I have no such file or directory because I'm not mounted in this stb1 here. So we can monitor files here. In this lecture as well, we will also look at some commands for monitoring the state of the file system. So a skill necessary for any hacker or system administrator. So we will get some information about mounted disks, and then check for and fix errors here. So storage devices are particularly error prone, so it's worth learning this skill. So getting information on mounted disks. So actually, let me show. Okay, so getting information on mounted disk. So the command df means disk free, will provide us with basic information on any hard disks or mounted devices such as CDs or DVDs and flash drives, including how much space is being used and how much is available. Without any options, df defaults the first drive on your system. In this case, it is SDA, and if you want to check a different drive, simply follow df command here by your drive name. So we can check errors as well here. The fsck command, short for file system check, checks the file system for errors and repairs the damage if possible, or else passes the bad area in to a bad blocks table to mark it as a bad. So to run fsck command, you need to specify the file system type here. Actually, I will not continue here. So you can in order to run it, first you should unmount dev stb1 or your file system device here, storage device here. So and then you can run fsck command here, which I will not run. So understanding how Linux designs and manages its devices is circular for any Linux user and hacker. Hackers will need to know what devices are attached to a system and how much space is available, because storage devices are often develop errors, so we can check and report these errors with fsck, and dd command is capable of marking the physical copy of a device, including any deleted files, of course. For any Linux user, it's circular to be knowledgeable in the use of the log files here. So log files store information about events that occur when the operating system and applications are run. So including any errors and security alerts, of course. So your system will log information automatically based on the series of rules that I will show you how to configure in this lectures. So I think this lecture will, this section of our Udemy course will be 2 lectures actually. So as a hacker, the log files can be a trail to your target activities and identity. So, but it can also be a trail to your own activities on someone else's system. So a hacker therefore needs to know what information they can gather, as well as what can be gathered about their own actions and methods in order to hide that evidence here. So on the other side, anyone securing Linux systems needs to know how to manage the logging functions to determine whether a system has been attacked, and then decipher what actually happened and who did it. So this lecture shows you how to examine and configure log files, as well as how to remove evidence of your activity and even disable logging altogether. So first we will look at the daemon that does the logging here. So they are syslog logging daemon. So Linux uses a daemon called as syslogd here. So to automatically log events on your computer. Several variations of syslog, including syslog here, including rsyslog here and rsyslog, actually syslog ng here we have actually. So are used on different distributions of Linux. So and even though they operate very similarly, some minor differences exist, of course. So Science Scala Linux is built on Debian, and Debian comes with rsyslog here by default. We focus on that utility in this lecture here. So if you want to use other distributions, it's worth doing a little research on their logging systems. So let's take a look at our syslog on our system here. We will search for all files related to rsyslog here. First open a terminal in Kali and enter here locate rsyslog here. So as you can see, numerous files can contain the keyword rsyslog here. So some of which are more useful than others. The one we want to examine is the configuration file rsyslog-conf here. So the rsyslog configuration file, like nearly every application in Linux, rsyslog is managed and configured by a plain text configuration file located as is generally the case on Linux. So in the etc here directory, in the case of rsyslog here, the configuration file is located at etc rsyslog.conf and open that file with any text editor here, for example mousepad etc rsyslog here.conf here, and as you can see here, we opened this file. So it's read-only, as you can see here. If we want to change, we should use these system files. We was using sudo command for root rights here. So you shall see a text file like that. So as you can see, the rsyslog .conf configuration file comes well documented with numerous comments explaining its use. So much of this information will not be useful to you at this moment, but if you navigate down below to line here 51 or 49 here, you will find the rules here, as you can see here. So this is where you can set the rules for what your system will automatically log for you. So our syslog logging rules here. The rsyslog here rules determine what kind of information is logged. So what programs have their messages logged and where that log is stored. As a hacker, this allows you to find out what is being logged and where those logs are written, so you can delete or obscure them. Scroll line to 56 here, and you should see something like this here. So each line is a separate logging rule here that says what messages are logged and where they are logged here. The basic format for these rules is, for example, facility priority here and the action here, like that. So the facility keyword references the program such as mail here, as you can see here, mail, like kernel or lpr like this here, kernel lpr here. The priority keyword determines what kind of messages to log for that program. So the action keyword here, as you can see here, action and priority. On the far right here, as you can see here, action keyword here references the location where the log will be sent. Here, as you can see, there is the where our logs will be sent. Let's look at each section more closely, beginning the beginning the facility keyword here. As you can see, there is the facility keywords here, and which refers to whatever software is generating the log, whether that's kernel, the mail system, or the user here. So the following here, as you can see here, is for example, out brief here is security authorization messages. For example, a cron here is clock diamonds, and kernel here is kernel messages. Diamond here is other diamonds, which stores, as you can see, var log diamond log here, and lpr is means printing system here. Mail is, as you know, mail user mail system here, and this is the user generic user level here. So you can select more than one facility by listing them separately by comma here. So the priority tells the system what kinds of messages to log here. So for example, codes listed from lowest priority starting at debug to highest priority ending at panic here. So if it's the priority here is like that, messages of all priorities are logged. So when you specify a priority, messages of that priority and higher are logged. For instance, if you specify a priority code alert, the system will log messages classified as alert and higher priority, but it won't log messages marked as crit or any priority lower than the alerts here. So first I want to show you how priorities here and priority names here. So here is 12 priorities, I think. So the first is debug. Yes, there is a actually 9. Yes, debug here, info, notice here, warning here, warn, error, crit, alert, merge, panic, 11 here. So the codes warn. So there is the most priorities here. For example, debug is the not very priorities, info little, info's priority is bigger than debug. Notice the priority is bigger than info, warning priority is bigger than notice, like that. And the most prioritized this message here, log here, is panic. So for example, there is a warn here. For example, warning, actually not warning, warn, error, and emerge here, and panic here have all been deprecated and should not be used. So if you want to use it, the action is usually a file name and the location where the logs should be sent. So don't save. So we don't want to save. It's just a note here. So note that generally log files are sent to var log directory. So with a file name, of course, that describes the facility that generated them, such as the out here, like that here, out, or kernel mail, like that, as you can see here. This means, for example, that logs generated by the out facility will be sent to var log out.log here. So we can see where our mail logs goes, var log mail.log here. So like that, for example. Actually, let's look our terminal here. So we can clean automatically up logs with log rotate here. So log files takes up space. So if you don't delete them, so actually I forgot mentioning you. So you can change this log files the direction here. For example, if you want to save your mail log to your home directory, you can change it here, but I will not change any of it. So you can also automatically clean up logs with log rotate command. So log files take up space. So if you don't delete them periodically, they will eventually fill your entire hard drive. On the other hand, if you delete your log files too frequently, you won't have logs to investigate at some future point in time. So you can use log rotate to determine the balance between the opposing requirements by rotating your logs. So log rotation is the process of regularly archiving log files by moving them to some other location, so leaving you with a fresh log file. That archived location will get cleaned up after a specified period of time. So your system is already rotating log files using a cron job, so that employs the log rotate utility. So you can configure the log rotate utility to choose the regularity of your log rotation with etc log rotate command here. Let's open it with the text editor, sudo mousepad etc log rotate here conf. As you can see here, we can see our log rotate configuration file. So now let's talk about them. So first is weekly. As you can see, there's a comments here. So weekly, what is weekly? First, you can see that the unit of time you rotate numbers refer to this here. For example, the default here is weekly, meaning any number after the rotate keyword always refer to weeks. So further down, you can see the settings, how often rotate logs here. The default setting is to rotate logs every 4 weeks here. So this default configuration will work for most people, but if you want to keep your logs longer for investigate purposes or shorter to clean them out quicker, this is the setting you should change. So you can change it here. So for instance, if you check your log files every week and want to save storage space, you could change the setting to rotate 1 here, but I will leave it as it is. So if you have a plenty of storage for your logs and want to keep a semi-permanent record for forensic analysis later, you could change this setting to rotate, for example, 26 to keep your logs for 6 months, or rotate 52 to keep them for 1 year. Here. So by default, a new empty log file is created when old ones are rotated out here, as you can see, create here. So as the comments in the configuration file advise, you can also choose to compress your rotated log files here. As you can see, compress, but it's commented here, and this means this uncompressed log files here. At the end of the rotation period, the log files are renamed and pushed towards the end of the chain of logs as a new log file is created, replacing the current log file. For instance, var logout will become var logout1, then var logout2, and so on. If you rotate logs every 4 weeks and keep 4 set of backups, you will have var logout 4 but no var logout 5, meaning that var logout 4 will be deleted rather than being pushed to var logout 5. So you can see this by using the locate command to find out log files with a wildcard here. For example, let's find it. Locate, as we did earlier, var log here out.log and then comma here. As you can see here, we have two outlog 1 and outlog 2 here. So for more details on the many ways to customize and use the log rotate utility, say the man log rotate file, log rotate page here, as you can see here. So as you know, man is the help documentation for every command in Linux. So we discussed it in previous lectures so far. So this is an excellent resource to learn about the functions you can use and the variables you can change to customize how your logs are handled. So once you become more familiar with Linux, you will get better sense of how often you need to log and what options you prefer. So it's worth revisiting the log rotate.configuration file. Remaining stealthy. Here, actually, I won't look at how many minutes we do. Okay. Remaining stealthy. Once you have compromised a Linux system, it's useful to disable logging and remove any evidence of your intrusion in the log files to reduce the chances of a detection. So there are many ways to do this, and each carries its own risks and level of reliability. So we can remove evidence and others here. So first you will want to remove any logs of your activity. So you can simply open the log files and precisely remove any logs detailing your activity line by line using the file deletion techniques you learned in previous lectures. So which would look, however, here this could be time consuming and leave the time gaps in the log files. Which would look suspicious. Also, deleted files can generally be recorded by a skilled forensics investigator. A better and more secure solution is to shred the log files with other file deletion systems. A skilled investigator is still able to recover the deleted files, but suppose there was a way to delete the file and overwrite it several times, making it much harder to recover. Lucky for us, Linux has built-in command appropriately named shred here for just this purpose. So to understand how the shred commands work, take a quick look at help screen here. Shred help. So as you can see here, shreds once as file. So on its own, shred will delete the file and overwrite it several times by default. So shred by default shred overwrites 4 times. So generally, the more times the file is overwritten, the harder it is to recover. But keep in mind that each overwrite takes time. So for very large files, shredding may become time consuming. So two useful options to include are the F option, which changes the permissions on the files to allow overwriting if a permission change is necessary, and in option here, in option which lets you choose how many times overwrite files. As an example, we will shred log files 10 times using, for example, shred sudo shred f and n 10 times. So var log out log here. So we need the F option to give us a permission to shred out files, and we follow the N option, which is desired number of times to overread. So after the path of the file we want to shred, we include the wildcard asterisk. So we are shredding not just the out.log file, we also shredding any log files that have been created with log rotate, such as outlog1, outlog2, outlog, and so on. So now once you shredded the file, you will see that contents are indeciphered and gibberish here. So mousepad var log here, outlog1 is permissions denied, sudo here. As you can see here, there is nothing to see because it's deleted out. So now the security engineer or forensics investigator examines the log files, and they will find nothing of use because none of it's recoverable. So now we can, lastly, let's disable logging here. Another option for recovering your tracks is to simply disable logging. When a hacker takes control of the system, they could immediately disable logging to prevent the system from keeping track of their activities. This of course requires root privileges. So this to disable all logging, the hacker could simply stop the rcc log daemon, and stopping any service in Linux. Use the same syntax here, service here. I will write syntax here, service name, and start, stop, or restart here. So to stop the logging daemon, you could simply enter here service rcc log stop here, and it is need root privileges here, and enter your root account password, and as you can see here, we stopped syslog here. Now Linux will stop generating any log files until the service is restarted, enabling you to operate without leaving behind any evidence in the log files. So start here. So and here you can start any service like that. Log files track nearly everything that happens on your Linux system. They can be an invaluable resource in trying to analyze what has occurred, whether it be malfunction or hack. So for the hacker, log files can be evidence of their activities and identity. So however, an astute hacker can remove and shred these files and disable logging entirely, so just leaving no evidence behind. In Linux terminology, a service is an application that runs in the background waiting for you to use it. So your Linux system has dozens of services pre-installed. Of this, the most well-known is the ubiquitous Apache web server, which is used for creating, managing, and deploying web servers. But there are so many more. For the purposes of this lecture, on services, I have selected just 4 that are of particular importance to the hacker: Apache Web Server, OpenSSH, MySQL, and PostgreSQL. So in this lecture, you will learn how to set up a web server with Apache, physically spy with OpenSSH, and access with the MySQL. So, and store your hacking information with PostgreSQL. So starting, stopping, and restarting services. So before we begin to work with these 4 circular services, let's start by examining how to start, stop, and restart services in Linux. Some services can be stopped and start via graphical user interface in Kali Linux, much as you would on an operating system like Windows or Mac. However, some services require use of the command line, which we will look at here. So here is the basic syntax of services here: service here, service name, name start, start, stop, or restart here. So this is the basic syntax of managing services. To start the Apache 2 server, web server or HTTP servers, you will enter here service here Apache 2 start and enter your password password here. To stop the Apache server, write service Apache 2 stop like that and enter your command here, password actually. So usually when you make a configuration change to an application or service by altering its plaintext configuration file, you need to restart the servers to capture the new configuration here like that. Restart here. You will enter here this command. So now that you understand how to start, stop, and restart services from the command line, so let's move on to the four most critical Linux services to hackers. So let's create an HTTP server with Apache Web Server. So the Apache Web Server is probably the most commonly used service on the Linux systems. So Apache is found over 60% of the world's web servers, so any self-respecting Linux administrator should be familiar with it. As a hacker aspiring to hack websites, it's critical to understand the inner workings of Apache websites and the backend database of these sites. So you can also use Apache to set up your own server from which you could serve up malware via cross-site scripting XSS to anyone who visits your site. Or you could clone a website and redirect traffic to your site via use of the domain name system, DNS. So in either of these cases, a basic knowledge of Apache is required. So let's start Apache. If you have a color running on your system, Apache is already installed. So many other Linux distros have it installed by default as well. If you don't have Apache installed, you can download and install it from the repositories by entering sudo apt-get install apache 2 and enter your password here. As you can see here, I have an update to do, so I will update here. It's actually not a big update, it's 76 kilobyte update here, so it will complete now. So the Apache Web Server is often associated with the MySQL database, which we will look at in the next lectures. And these two services are very often paired with a scripting language such as Perl or PHP to develop web applications. These combinations of Linux, Apache, MySQL, Linux, and PHP or Perl forms a powerful and robust platform for the development and deployment of web-based applications known as LAMP. So these are the most widely used tools for developing websites in the Linux world, and they are very popular in the Microsoft world too. So where they are generally referred to as WAMP, with the W standing for Windows. So the first step, of course, is to start Apache daemon. So let's get started. So in Kali, go to Applications here. Services here, okay, services here, and HTTPD here, or we can just accomplish the same from the command line by entering services Apache 2, actually let's use service Apache 2 start here. So we start Apache 2 server here. Now that the Apache is running, it should be able to serve up, actually let's enter command here. So it should be able to serve up its default web page. So open our web browser here. It's actually is Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, and enter the localhost domain or localhost domain here local host here, and as you can see here, our localhost is working. So localhost is the same as 127.0.0.2.1. Here, as you can see here, there's redirecting to the same web page because we just started our Apache web server here. As you can see, Apache 2 Debian default page. So this is the default page used to test the correct operation of the Apache 2 server after installation on Debian systems. If you can read this message, it means that the Apache HTTP server installed at this site and is working properly. So let's edit the index.html file. Apache's default web page is at cd var www html and html here, and as you can see, there's an index.html. So this is the default web page we seen here. So you can edit the index.html file to serve up whatever information you want. So let's create our own here. So sudo here. Actually, we don't need sudo, right? Mousepad index.html. As you can see, we opened our, actually it's read only, so we don't open read only, we will write this file. So note that the default web page has exactly the text that was displayed when we opened our browser to localhost, but in HTML format. As you can see, Apache 2 default page, it works here. So all we need to do is to edit or replace this file to have our web server display the information we want. For example, we can change it. We will change it completely, but for example purposes, I will change it. For example, hacking training course techpins.com, for example, .com, and let's restart our server here. Actually, hacking training, as you can see, hacking training course, we change title of it. Let's change inside of it actually as well, page header. So here and here as well. So let's change apps. I'm sorry. Here. So now we can change it actually. Here, let's enter, and as you can see, hacking training course techpins.com, here we changed it here. So let's delete this HTML file and add a new HTML file. Know that we have this web server up and running at the index.html file open, so we can add whatever text we'd like the web server to serve up. So we will create some simple HTML blocks. So let's create this page here. Let's delete this here, and let's open our tags here. So HTML body tag here, body here. Actually, let's increase it a little bit. HTML body, and let's close it here, body here, and close it here, HTML as well. So here, let's add header here and here. Actually, header 1 here and header 1 here as well. So for example, techpins is hacking is best to learn from techpins here, for example. So for example, let's add paragraph here as well. P here. If you want to learn hacking, techpins.com, udemy.com here, for example. And let's add another paragraph paragraph here. So you are in the best place to learn something, or hacking especially here. So once you enter the text exactly, or you can change whatever you want here, save file here by Control plus save, clicking in keyboard here, or you can save here just clicking on this here. So let's restart it, and as you can see here, see what happens. So navigate your browser once again and enter localhost or your local IP address here. As you can see here, we change it. So now let's learn how I open SSH and something here, for example, MySQL as well here, and other information here. So in later lectures, we will create a Raspberry Pi application as well here. So our lecture is done here. So Linux has numerous services that are in the background until the user needs them. So the Apache web server is the most widely used, but a hacker should be familiar with MySQL, SSH, and PostSQL here for various tasks too. So you will learn more and more MySQL about MySQL, SSH, and Apache server here. So this is this was the just basic example here. So in this lecture we covered absolute basics of getting started with these services. Once you are comfortable with your Linux system, I urge you to go out and explore each of these services further. Passive information gathering. Beginning a career in ethical hacking and/or penetration testing can be very exciting, and most of the time our minds will be a bit overwhelmed, causing us to visit only the lectures about explaining a system in a course such as this. However, conducting a penetration test is like starting a new project at home. Before you build a pool in your backyard, there are few things you must consider, such as the space that's available, the cost of materials, the contractors, fees, and other details. Information gathering is a very important phase of the hacking life cycle and penetration testing. In this lecture, we will focus, actually, not in this lecture, in this section, it will be, I think, 4 or 5 lectures, we will focus on passive information gathering techniques and methods. We will learn how to use the internet to get us the information and specific details we need about our target by using both online and tools on Kali Linux. We will be covering in this lecture like reconnaissance and footprinting, understanding passive information gathering, understanding open source intelligence, we will use the top open source intelligence tools, identify the target technologies and security controls, finding leaks in cloud resources, understanding whois and copying websites with HTTP track, and find subdomains using sublister and other topics we will cover here. So we have some technical requirements in this section of our course here. The first, we need Kali Linux here. This is the technical requirements, so software requirements to complete this lecture, this section of our course successfully. The first, you need Linux, Kali Linux, Maltigo, Recon NG, like the harvester, like OCR framework. We will download all of it. Framework here, HT track, like S3 scanner, and sublister here. Reconnaissance and footprinting. The various phases of hacking include reconnaissance, scanning, gaining access, maintaining access, and clearing tracks. So the reconnaissance phase is the most important phase of penetration test since this is when the ethical hacker or penetration tester conducts extensive research into gathering as much information about the target as possible. Furthermore, footprinting will help create a profile of the target, gathering profiling information such as running services, open ports, and operating system. We will now look at both reconnaissance and footprinting in more detail. Reconnaissance here. From a military perspective, reconnaissance is the observation and research of an enemy target. In cybersecurity, as a penetration tester, we use various tools and techniques to gather detailed information about the target organization and its underlying infrastructure. Reconnaissance is vital in the field of penetration testing. As a penetration tester, we definitely need to know about our target as well as its vulnerabilities and operating systems before we attempt to gain access via exploitation, of course. The information gathered during the reconnaissance phase will help us to choose the right tools and techniques to successfully exploit the target. Reconnaissance can be divided into two categories. The first is passive reconnaissance and active. So passive reconnaissance uses an indirect approach and does not engage to target. But active reconnaissance is directly engages to the target to gather specific details. Footprinting we have here. The footprinting is the procedure whereby as much information as possible is gathered in relation to target. In footprinting, the objective is to obtain specific details about the target, such as its operating systems and service versions of running applications. Footprinting. So the information that's collected can be used in various ways to gain access to the target system, network, or organization. Footprinting allows a penetration tester to understand the security posture of the target infrastructure, quickly identify security vulnerabilities on the target system and networks, and create a network map of the organization and reduce the area of focus to the specific IP addresses, domain names, and the types of devices regarding which information is required. Footprinting is a part of the reconnaissance phase. However, since footprinting is able to provide more specific details about the target, we can consider footprinting to be a subset of the reconnaissance phase. So, there are the main objectives of footprinting, which is collecting network information, info here, like domain names, IP addresses, and network protocols here, and second is the collecting system information, collecting system information here, like user and group names, like routing table, system names and types. And lastly is the collecting organization information here, like for example employee details, company directory, and location details. To successfully obtain about a target, I will recommend using the footprinting methodology like that. For example, checking search engines, check Yahoo, Bing, and Google, perform Google hacking. This is not a bad thing, just an advanced Google search technique, advanced Google search technique. here, and now like info gathering through social media, like Facebook, LinkedIn, for Instagram, and Twitter, of course. And footprinting the company's website, so you can footprint company's website with applications as well. Footprint company's website. Perform email footprinting techniques. We will discuss all about, you will learn how to perform these footprinting techniques later. This is just the introduction course of our section. Use the who is command here. Perform DNS footprinting and network, use accurate network footprinting techniques, and use social engineering, the most important. So you are now able to differentiate between reconnaissance and footprinting. Both reconnaissance and footprinting are required during penetration testing, as each provides vital information about the target. In the next lecture, we will take a deep dive into passive information gathering. Understanding passive information gathering. Passive information gathering is when you use an indirect approach to obtain information about your target. This method obtains information that's publicly available from many sources, thus eliminating direct contact with the potential target. Passive information gathering is usually fruitful, and a lot of organizations usually publish information and details about their organization as a marketing strategy for their existing and potential customers. Sometimes when organizations advertise a vacancy on a job recruiting website, the recruiter posts technical requirements for the potential candidate. From a penetration tester's point of view, the technical details can indicate the types of platforms and applications that are running within the organization's network infrastructure. We have covered the concepts of passive information gathering in previous lectures. Now let's take a deep dive into learning about open source intelligence in this lecture. Understanding open source intelligence, OSINT. As mentioned previously, the first stage of penetration test is to gather as much information as possible on a given target or organization. Gathering information prior to exploiting and gaining access to a network or a system will help penetration tester narrow the scope of the attack and design specific types of attacks and payloads that are suitable for the attack surface of the target. We will begin our information gathering phase by utilizing the largest computer network in existing. This is the internet. And the internet has many platforms, ranging from forums and messaging boards to social media platforms. A lot of companies create an online presence to help make their products and services potential clients. In doing so, the creation of a company's website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on ensures that their potential customers get to know who they are and what services and products are offered. The marketing department is usually responsible for ensuring that an organization's online presence is felt and their digital portfolio is always up to date and catching. Here we have open source intelligent tools. Here, as you can see here, information gathering, DNS, synth analysis, Maltego we have here, and other tools. Here we will use all of these tools in this course. So organizations usually publish information about themselves on various internet platforms, such as blogs and recruitment websites. As the internet is so readily available and accessible, it's quite easy for someone to gather information on a targeted organization simply by using search engines and determining their underlying infrastructure. This technique is known as open source intelligence, OSINT. This is where a penetration tester or ethical hacker uses various tools and techniques that harness information that's publicly available on the internet to create a portfolio of the target. Open source intelligence is a type of passive information gathering where the penetration tester does not make direct contact or a connection with the actual target, but rather asks legitimate and reliable sources about the target. Over the years, I have noticed a lot of job hunting websites where recruiters post vacancies for internet technologies positions within a company, but the recruiter specifies that an ideal candidate should have experience with the specific technologies. So this can be good thing for the company and the applicant. However, it can be bad as well. So there's pros and cons of companies posting their technologies on requirement websites. The pros of this, the potential candidate will know what type of environment to expect if they are hired. And the pros as well, the potential candidate can determine beforehand whether they have the skill set required for the job. And there is a concept as well here. The company is partially exposing their technologies to public. So a hacker can determine this infrastructure and better select exploits and tools to perform cyber attack. So we have open source intelligence tools here. In this lecture, I will demonstrate some of the most popular open source intelligence tools that are available for Kali Linux. Each tool will help us create a profile about the target using various sources of the information that can be found on the internet. Over the few subsections, we will cover OSINT tools like Maltego here, Maltego, Recon NG, the harvester here we have the harvester, as you can see here we have here the harvester, the Shodan here Shodan is the website, so we can use it as well. OCR framework we will use it. So let's start with Maltego. Maltego was created by here let's open a browser, so we will need it. Actually we can close it as well. Here don't save. Maltego, Paterva, Paterva.com. So Maltego was created by Paterva.com as a graphical interactive data mining application with the ability to query and gather information from various sources on the internet and present data in easy-to-read graphics. The graphs demonstrate the relationship between each entity and the target. So to get started, you need a user account to access these functions and features of Maltego. So go to this website here, Maltego here, and click on plans here. Actually, click on plans here. Let's delete it as well. And as you can see, we have Maltego community here, and click on that. Here we can register and download it free. So this is free for non-commercial use. Is available across platforms and even ships with Kali Linux out of the box. As you can see here, we have actually Maltego here. Maltego we have here, Maltego, so I will not download it. So actually we need open a user account for logging in. Let's load the Maltego here. And we need to Yes, actually, we don't need to install register Maltego for using here, I think. But in previous months, actually, it was like that. Yes, we have to log in here. After reading license agreement, click next, and here, as you can see here, we have to give passwords and email addresses. So I will use fake email here, DuckDuckGo here, and let's email fake. Okay, open this, and let's create and register and download here. So let's first name is, for example, Hockey Pokey, and let's get copy this as well. And here our password is here, and I'm not a robot. Motorcycles here, and click on register. Actually, let's save password. So email sent to this email here. This is the fake email, temporary use. So it will come here. Let's restart web page. Okay. Yes, it's the email. We entered to Maltego here. Actually, let's try this here. GB6 hash. Oops. GB6 hash. H here. Let's log in. Your account has not been activated. Click here. Sent over email. Provide email address to procedure number here. So email didn't came here. So we will use we will use actually another email fake here. Email fake here. Temporary email. We can use it. So copy. It didn't came right. Yes, it didn't came here. So let's open a new account here. Our email address here, Pokey here, and enter I'm not robot here, and click on register. Save this as well. Mail sent. Your inbox is empty. Actually, it's a problem here. I will stop video. In previous lecture, we learned about the basics of hunting subdomains. Actually, in this lecture, we will dive a little deeper and look at other tools that are available for gathering intel on our target. So we will start by using the infamous tools of Kali Linux. Gathering information is a circular stage of performing a penetration test, as every step we take after this will be an outcome of all the information we gather during this stage. Actually, for this reason, it's very important that we gather as much information as possible before jumping into the exploitation stage. This is the first lecture of our section of our Udemy course. We will cover the recipes, like we will get a list of subdomains, we will use Shodan for fun and profit, we will use Shodan Honey Score, we will use Shodan plugins, Census, we will use Nmap to find open ports. We will bypass firewalls with Nmap. We will search for open directories using GoBuster. We will hunt for SSL flaws. We will automate brute force using brute spray. We will dig with the harvester. So we will dig deep with the harvester. We will find technology behind web applications with actually using with Y2mate and build with websites and tools. We will scan IPs with Masterclass and Nmap. We will find origin servers with Cloud Bunny. We will sniff around with the Kismet and testing routers with firewall. Actually, firstly, let's start by get a list of subdomains. So when performing a black box test, the client may not give us all of the subdomains of their organization. So in this recipe, we'll cover one of the few techniques that can be used to get a list of the subdomains of an organization. So how to do it? So first of all, we have a website that will help us for doing this, and this is the this website is scans.io. Actually, let's open here scans.io. So we have this the DNS thumbnail we will use. The scans.io, it relies on scans.io for its results, so it's pretty simple to use. So actually, can you see my screen? Yes. And dnsdumper.com. Actually, dnsdumper. Oops. Actually, DNS. Actually, it's DNS dumpster, right? dnsdumpster.com. Actually, yes. So actually, let's find some subdomains with this tool. So I will give our websites, TechPins Academy's websites, to find DNS subdomains, and it's searching. As you can see here, this found us information. So what this information is, we can see here that our website hosting is Namecheap hosting, and DNS is Namecheap DNS. And we have the mail subdomain here, mail.techpins.com. As you can see here, this mail.techpins.com will redirect us to the main page of our website, because I hadn't set it up this mail yet. And as you can see here, our DNS is Namecheap DNS. So here we can see the Namecheap hosting IP address and DNS address here. and you can see here we have get it as much the information by just one side. So actually we have some additional informations here as well. You can see here we have txt records will show here, and we can download XLSX files and video grab for it. So we done with that, we get the information from just one domain. So it will actually gives additional subdomains because our website hasn't subdomains yet, and we don't need it. So for example, in some website, if you can these subdomains, for example, this is the domain of website, and this is the subdomain here. So if we search khalid.org here in DNS dumpster, we will get information. So there was an error request. Why? Because I have put slash on it. Actually, as you can see here, we can see information here. We have txt records here. Actually, we have mails and Urania Kali.org, Polyomia Kali.org, Hestia Kali.org, Lava, Heap, Nike, Melpomene, and Hikit. We have so much subdomains here, as you can see here, and we can see these IP addresses. So which host address of which these subdomains, which host address, and which servers using this. So as you can see, they are pretty similar actually, and this means they are going to in one hosting. So these domains going to just in one hosting, so different hosting. You can redirect these as well, different hostings as well. As you can see, there's the for Russia Kali, Docs Kali actually. So this means actually docs, but in Russian language. We have forums, tools, and we have different weird and git subdomains here. So let's close this. Actually, I want to show you something that very helpful for hackers and penetration testers website, which is Shodan. So Shodan is the world's first search engine that was used to search for devices that are connected on the internet. So in the next lecture, actually, I will teach you how to use Shodan and how to use Shodan for fun and profit. So I'm waiting you in next lecture. Hello. As you remember, we already installed our penetration testing lab, and now we will install Metasploit in Ubuntu. So first login to your Ubuntu system. Of course, I have an update to download, but I will not download them for now. And then let's I'm sorry, let's fix that. Okay, so now after successfully logging it with the password, we set the installation. So we will change to the password for it. So let's change to the password because we already newly installed our system. So for changing our sudo password, we have to write sudo here, sudo passwd. Oops. Actually, let's increase the font a little bit here. Can you hear me actually? 1, 2, 3. Yes. So let's increase the font here, and terminal size, command, colors, text. Actually here, and increase the font to 96 here, and then write sudo and then pass wd, and we will change root account password. So firstly you enter your user account password. In my case is 321, and enter the new password. So in our root account we haven't assigned a password yet, because this is because we already newly installed Ubuntu and we hadn't assigned any password to it. So I will assign the password. So make sure you won't forget this password, because it's important root password. So in my case, if you have assigned in already password in your Linux, the password probably is tour here, tour. The root password in 90% happens tour. So by setting a root password, we can switch to root anytime using the su command. So here we can use that, for example, su root. So now we will enter root password here. As you can see here, now we are not user account, we are in the root account, and we can do whatever we want in Linux. Now let's install curl and nmap packages by typing apt-get install curl and apt-get install nmap before installing Metasploit. So apt it's not mandatory to use sudo because we are already in root account. We can do whatever we want. So apt-get install curl. Oops. apt-get install curl here, and enter y. Oops, enter y and press enter. Here our curl is now installing, and after that we will install nmap before installing Metasploit. Here. And now we will install sudo. Actually, we don't have to enter sudo apt install nmap. Here it's 26.3 megabytes, and enter e and enter. Here we are installing nmap now. Okay, it's actually installed. It's clear here, and now we will simply need to download Metasploit using the curl. So actually let's use curl. Enter the Metasploit https raw github user content.com. We will use official Metasploit from rapid7 here, Metasploit omnibus here, omnibus master config templates, actually Metasploit framework wrappers here, msf update .r here, and we will install to msf install folder here. As you can see, we're downloading it here. See the msf install, not a directory. Actually, let's copy it here. MSF update. Actually, let's visit this website here. Copy, open link. This link will open in Firefox web browser. Not found. Why? Here. Invalid. Then let's search for it. Metasploit download GitHub here. And here. Metasploit framework. Installing here. And here. So let's copy this link here, and then actually it's not link, it's an command. Now put this here and enter. Actually, it should not like that. I have to copy this from it. Actually, this is not the one command. This is actually several commands in one file. It's installing now. So I will pause video here. Actually, pause video lecture here, and we will continue after downloading these files. So our Metasploit has downloaded. Now this is the automatically installer that we downloaded here. So in order to install it, let's go to MSF install folder. Here, as you can see, after downloading, there's a created one. cd msf install ls. Actually, we can run like that. MSF install is not a folder. As you can see here, adding Metasploit here. Metasploit is the newest version. So actually MSF Metasploit is installed already, because as you remember, we copied MSF install. So we gave it permission to MSF install and we run it. So just copy this and MSF install will Metasploit framework will install automatically. So exit here, MSF actually MSF here, MSF. Actually, we have to run Metasploit framework using sudo command msf console and enter your user password, not the root, because this is not the root account here. And as you can see here, our Metasploit framework is installed and ready to run. In previous lecture, we successfully downloaded and installed Metasploit framework. So with that, actually, next we need to initialize the Metasploit database using the msfdb init command here. So enter msfdb init, msfdb here, init, and as you can see, value init this ask here, would you like to init web service? Yes. Clearing the HTTP web data service credential in MSF console. Here, starting database, creating one. Here. Actually now, let's run it again. Here, sudo msfdb init is defined here. Please run MSF as a non-root user. Then msfdb init. Yes.
the existing data and yes. This account user initial MSF web service account username, MSF here, enabling for random password, account password, MSF also. Now this attempting to start MSF web service here. As you can see, this is our account here. As you can see here, if needed, manually reconnect to the data service in MSF console using this command here. So now actually we will prompt to set up a web service username and password during installation so that we can use Metasploit API. So copy this link, actually just open like that, right click, open link here, and advanced, if you get something like that in Firefox, potential security risk ahead, this is just in your site, there's nothing risky here, and click on accept the risk and continue. Metasploit API account, you are not currently logged in, please click here to take on the login page. So we have to log in firstly. As you remember, my username is MSF and password is also MSF here. Save password here, as you can see here, Metasploit API account. So and here we can choose any desired username and password. So when the successfully initializing database here, you will prompt it to the actually this screenshot here, MSF, not documentation, as you can see here. As you can see here, we can see all of our databases here, and this means we had successfully created our database, and we have payloads here and like that. So now we can run our MSF console here. We're using MSF console here and here. Welcome to please answer a few questions here. Metasploit work initial setup complete here. As you can see here, Metasploit framework initial setup complete. So we have successfully installed Metasploit. Now actually let's focus on some of the basic fundamentals before moving on the actual testing. So the fundamentals of Metasploit. Know that we have recall the essential phases of penetration test and initialized Metasploit. So let's talk about the big picture. That is Metasploit. Metasploit is a security project that provides exploits and tons of reconnaissance features to aid in a penetration tester. Metasploit was created by H.D. in 2003, and since then, its rapid development has led it to be recognized as one of the most popular penetration testing tools available. Metasploit was a natively Ruby-driven project, but with its latest releases, it has started to support Python and Go modules as well. Metasploit offers various exploits, post-exploits, and auxiliary, scanner, evasion, and exploit development tools. With the release of Metasploit 5, a number of new capabilities have been added to Metasploit, some of which are a choice between database and the new HTTP-based data service. And in new versions, we have evasion models, we have the automation API, exploitation at a scale. AirHost has no change to AirHost, so which allows an exploit model to be run over multiple targets. We have shell sessions, now have a background command, and in latest version of Metasploit, we have support for Go language and Python language along with the Ruby. So the Metasploit version comes with 2 editions, so I want to show you here Metasploit editions here. Actually, let's open it. So actually Metasploit here comes with Pro and Framework. So what this Pro this version is a commercial one and offers tons of great features, of course, such as web application scanning, exploitation, and automated exploitation, and is quite suitable for professional penetration testers and IT security teams. The Pro edition is primarily used for professional, advanced, and extensive penetration tests and enterprise security programs. And we have free versions as well along with Pro. This is the framework version of Metasploit. So this is the Metasploit framework. This is a command line heavy edition with all the manual tasks provided, such as a manual exploitation, third-party import, and so on. So this version is suitable for the developers and security researchers as it is free and open source. So throughout this course, we will be using the Metasploit Framework Edition. So this is the free Metasploit. So, but Metasploit also offers the various types of interfaces, like the graphical user interface. So the graphical user interface Metasploit has all the options you will ever need available at click of a button. So this is a user-friendly interface that helps to provide cleaner vulnerability management. The user interface is offered as part of the Metasploit Pro only. And we have the console interface. So this is the preferred interface and the most popular one as well. So this interface provides an all-in-one approach to all options offered by Metasploit. So this interface is also considered one of the most stable interfaces. Throughout this course, we will be using the console interface the most. And we have the command line interface as well. The command line interface is the most powerful interface. So it supports launching exploits for activities such as payload generation. So, however, remembering every command while using the command line interface is a difficult job. Now that we have set up Metasploit 5, we are ready to perform our first penetration test. However, before we start the test, let's recall some of the essential functions and terminologies used in Metasploit. So here I want open notepad here, actually not text editor here. Actually, let's scale it a little bit. Tools, actually. Preferences, editor, font and colors, and here it is. Find not tools here. Oops. It's the actual not tab it is. View font and colors, not system, and 18 here. So now I will write here some terminologies of Metasploit. So in Metasploit, we can list all the useful commands available by typing help here. As you can see here, this help command will help help us frequently. And here, but I want to talk about a few terminologies in Metasploit here. So after we have a basic terms used in Metasploit. So I want talk about the most mandatory ones here. So the first is exploits. Actually, let's make it full screen. Here, exploits. So what this exploit is? So this is a piece of code that when executed will exploit the vulnerability of the target. And we have, I'm writing here for better understanding. And we have a payload here, payload. What payload is, so this is a piece of code that runs on the target after successful successful exploitation. So it defines the actions we want to perform on the target system. Actually, let's make it a little bit here. And we have here, and we have auxiliary here. Auxiliary. So what this is, so these are modules that provide additional functionalities such as scanning, fuzzing, sniffing, and much more. And actually here, so, and we have encoders here, encoders. What encoders is? Encoders are used to obfuscate modules to avoid detection by a protection mechanism, such as an antivirus or a firewall. And we have meterpreter as well. So what meterpreter is, I will write here. Meterpreter. So meterpreter is a payload that uses in-memory DLL injection staggers. It provides a variety of functions we can perform on the target, which makes it popular choice. Which makes it a popular choice. So actually, by writing help in MSF console, while running MSF console, you can list all of these terminologies here, but this is the most important terminologies in Metasploit here. So here, as you can see, oops, what is that? So as you can see here, we can the Metasploit tells us how to run these. We have developer commands here, credential backed commands, database backend commands here. As you can see here, every command has description and job commands, module commands, and like that here. So what is the benefits of penetration testing using Metasploit? So actually, let's make it in let's tell it in the next lecture, because it's almost 16 minutes. So I'm waiting you in next lecture. Thank you for watching. Before we jump into an example penetration test, we must know why we should prefer Metasploit to manual exploitation techniques. Is it because of a hacker-like terminal that gives us a professional look, or is there a different reason? Metasploit is a preferable choice compared to traditional manual techniques because of specific factors. We will discuss these in this lecture. So first of all, Metasploit is open source. One of the top reasons why we should go with Metasploit framework is because it is open source and actively developed. Various other expensive tools exist for carrying out penetration testing. However, Metasploit it uses actually it's source code and add their own custom modules. The pro versions of Metasploit is chargeable, but for the sake of learning, the framework edition is mostly preferred. Support for testing large networks and natural naming conventions. Using Metasploit is easy. So, however, here ease of use refers to natural naming conventions for the commands. Here, so Metasploit offers excellent comfort while conducting a massive network penetration test. Consider a scenario where we need to test a network with 200 systems. Instead of checking each system one after the other, Metasploit allows us to examine the entire range automatically. Using parameters such as subnet and classless interdomain routing CIDR values, Metasploit tests all the systems to exploit the vulnerability. Whereas using manual techniques, we might need to launch exploit manual onto 200 systems. Therefore, Metasploit saves a significant amount of time and energy. Also, Metasploit has smart payload generation and switching mechanism. Most importantly, switching between payloads in Metasploit is easy. I'm sorry. Metasploit provides quick access to change payloads using the here set payload command. So therefore, turning the Meterpreter or shell-based access into a more specific operation, such as adding a user and getting remote desktop access, becomes easy. Generating shellcode to use in manual exploits also becomes easy by using the MSF Venom application from the command line, which also features encryption in Metasploit 5.0 release. Here, as you can see here, you can create Trojans with MSF Venom, actually as payloads as well. Cleaner exists. So this is one of the features of Metasploit. Metasploit is also responsible for making a much cleaner exit from the system it has compromised. A custom-coded exploit, on the other hand, can crash the system while exiting in its operations, making a clean exit indeed an essential factor in cases where we know that the service will not restart immediately. Let's consider a scenario where we have compromised the web server, and while we were making an exit, the exploit application crashed. The scheduled maintenance time for the server is left with 50 days time on it. So what do we do? Shall we wait for the next 50 odd days for the service to come up again so that we can exploit it again? Moreover, what if the service come back after being patched? We would only end up kicking ourselves. This also shows a clear sign of poor penetration testing skills. Therefore, a better approach would be to use the Metasploit framework, which is known for making much cleaner exist, as well as offering tons of post-exploitation functions such as persistence, which can help maintain permanent access to the server. So actually we have reaching to the domain controller case study here. So recalling the basics of Metasploit. We are all set to perform our penetration tests with Metasploit. So let's consider an on-site scenario where we are asked to test an IP address and check if it is vulnerable to an attack. The sole purpose of this test is to ensure all the proper checks are in place. So this scenario is quite straightforward. We will presume that all the pre-interactions have been carried out with the client and that the actual testing phase is going to start. please refer to the questions here if you have Udemy question site to here if you have any questions here. So now I want to show you to using database in Metasploit DB status here. So it's always better approach to store the results automatically when you conduct a penetration test. Here, making use of the databases will help us build a knowledge base of hosts, services, and vulnerabilities in the scope of penetration tests. Using databases in Metasploit also speeds up searching and improves response time. So Metasploit 6.0 relies heavily on data services such as PostgreSQL database and web servers. In its installation phase, we learned how to initialize a database and web service for Metasploit. To check if Metasploit is currently connected to a database or a web service, we can actually save console. Let's run our Metasploit here. And so to check if Metasploit is currently connected to database or web service, we can just type actually db status. So as you can see here, connected to remote data service to local host, connection type is HTTP, connection name is local HTTPS data service. So let's open this link, and as you can see here, we have get command in it. As you can see here. So there might be situations where we want to connect to a separate database or web service rather than the default Metasploit database. In such cases, we can make use of the db connect here. db connect. Also, what is it? Password case don't send. So in such situations, we can use db connect and help. Connect and help. As you can see here, we can, there's a HTTP possible connection commands here. This is the examples, and this is the examples here. So actually here, now I want to show you here the commands on Metasploit. So we can delete this, and now we will start a new actually a new text to show you the possible database commands here. So in Metasploit we have analyze here. So this command analyze database information about a target IP or a range, and we have db connect here. So this command is used to interact oops, why is that? Is used to interact, oops, sorry, is used to interact with databases other than the actually default one, and the default one. And we have another command here, which is db export. So this command is used to export the entire set of data stored in the database for the sake of creating reports or as input to another tool. And we have db nmap here, db nmap. So this command, actually this db nmap command is used for scanning the target with nmap and storing the results in the Metasploit database. And we have db status that we have used this command in this lecture. So you already know it, I think. So this command is used to check whether database connectivity is present or not. And we have db disconnect. We have just a few that I want to talk about here. So db disconnect. So this command is used to disconnect from a particular database. And we have db import here, last command that we will learn. This command is used to import results from other tools, like these are such as Nisus, nmap, and actually others. So now actually we have 2 or 3 commands that I want to talk here. Actually we have few commands to write here, which is database rebuild ch. So this command is used to rebuild the ch if the earlier ch gets corrupted or is stored with older results. And we have db remove here, db remove. So this is a simple command. This command removes the saved data service entry. And last command that we will discuss about is db save. What this command does, so this command saves the current data service entry as the default, so that on its next startup it reconnects to this service by default. Actually this okay. So when starting a new penetration test, it's always good to separate previously scanned hosts and their respective data from the new penetration test so that they don't get merged. So we can do this in Metasploit before starting a new penetration test by making use of the workspace command, like that. Here, let's change workspace. It's a default workspace, but when we do like that, workspace h, as you can see here, we can list of workspace here, and workspace v, not b, v. You can see here we have just one workspace here. So to add a new workspace, we can use the workspace a command, so followed by an identifier. So workspace, actually not workspace a, and then after that we will test space, for example, and we added workspaces here. So when we execute this command workspace, you can see here we have default, and we have default workspace, and we have test space workspace. So here we can see that we have successfully created a new workspace using the this A switch. So let's switch the workspace by merely using the workspace command. So for the workspace name here, for example, actually we can also change this workspace after writing this command. Just enter your created workspace name. For example, in my case, this is the test space. As you can see here, we are now in test space workspace. So when we write like that, workspace, as you can see here, we are working in workspace test space now. And so we can verify the current workspace using the workspace command, where the workspace should be in red here like that, and have this symbol before as a prefix, meaning that the workspace is in use. Here, let's change this to default. Workspace default. And now let's write workspace again. As you can see here, we are in default workspace. In this lecture, we will conducting a port scan with a Metasploit. So let me check firstly. As you can see, this is the my Windows machine that runs on a virtual box. Actually, not virtual box, it's a VMware. This is a kind of virtual machine. And today, this stock Windows system will be our target system here. There are the same local access area network. So let's check here, computer, see the properties of it here, and let's run an ifconfig ipconfig command here. As you can see here, they are in the same network. So I didn't did any modifications to these systems. So I newly installed these Windows systems, so I will decrease this size for better thing. So here, so using the db nmap sv command here. Oops, okay. db nmap. db nmap and minus sv, so we can run nmap scan with it. So actually, let's run nmap firstly, nmap sv. So we looked at Windows IP address, but consider we don't know any IP address of it, so we just want to attack our LAN local area network machine, but we don't know its IP address yet. So nmap sv here, nmap sv ifconfig. So let's install network tools. Net tools here. We are installing net tools now. So as you can see here, network tools installed, and we can now use ifconfig command. Ifconfig. As you can see, our IP address is 133. So now let's run nmap scan here. Nmap sp 192.168.188, and now 0 and 24. So this is the subnet mask number. So I will you will learn what this 24 is. There might be 8 or 16 or 24 here. As you can see here, our net mask is 24, so we added 24 to it. Actually, as you can see here, we have two hosts active in this nmap here, but let's make a deep scan here. We have two online machines in our network. Okay, served soon, filtered. Actually, we can use SN as well. As you can see here, we have two online machines that connected to internet now. So now we will scan these particular IP addresses for determining which one is Windows 7 operating, which one is using Windows 7 operating system. So for it, we will add operating system detection module in nmap. So, oops. Oh, and here actually you can see nmap parameters that we can use. So we will add with big O. Here TCP fingerprint requires root privileges. So if you want to operating system detection, you have to run it with root privileges. You run without person, you need to use scan type along with its search of SN. Okay, SS now. Now starting. So as you can see here, we have VMware here. Actually, VMware, all of these are VMware. Too many fingerprints must just give specific virtual NAT device 20. Oh, 2, and this is 132, 33 here. Now we will actually find these actually the first. Let's try this port, and then we will use in MSF Metasploit console. So now we will add this, we will write our IP address in it here, copy, and here. Now nmap scan is started and nmap scan is done. Here one host is active, which is this is probably our Windows host. So here we can see that we run the db nmap command twice because we run it the first time. So actually now we will add pn pn. So let's add pn parameter pn. Oops, actually not. So then 154 100 VMware. So let's run this. It might take some time, sometimes here. Or actually it is port number 2 probably. Yes, it is port number 2. Actually not, IP number 2 here. As you can see here, now we can obviously see this is the Windows network. So hence we had to set this PN here, PN, switching the nmap command, which denotes a no ping scan. So we can see where we have also defined this SV switch, which denotes a version scan, having several services up and running here. As you can see, actually let's scan other ports as well. So we scan 2. Now we will scan you here. Yes, this is the 2 here. So now we will also scan 133 32 34 actually 34 port. Oops, not this. 134, and we have PN assigned to it, so it might take a little longer because we are running port scanning here. I will pause the video here.
Hi, and welcome to this tutorial on installing Metasploitable 2. So today we're going to first walk you through how to download VirtualBox, which is a free virtual machine platform. Then we'll walk you through how to download Metasploitable 2, the files that you'll need. And then lastly, we'll go through and install Metasploitable 2 on VirtualBox. So the first thing we need to do is have you install VirtualBox. I already have it installed here on my machine, but the best way that I found to download it is just to come here into Google and search for VirtualBox. Come to their downloads page, and once you're here, they have different platform packages. So choose the one that is best, that corresponds to your operating system. Most likely it'll be Windows or OS, Mac, or Linux. I'm using Windows just because my Windows machine has a lot more power than my Mac. So go ahead and download those files and then follow the installation prompts for your operating system. So pause the video here and then resume once you have it all installed. Okay, great, welcome back. So now you should have VirtualBox installed, and when you open it up, it should look like this, except this left-hand side should be blank. I've got a few operating systems already, or virtual machines already installed and running, but you shouldn't have anything at this point. So the next thing that we need to do is download Metasploitable 2. So again, we'll come here to Google and we'll just search for Metasploitable 2. Download. Come here to the Rapid7 link. Rapid7 is the company which develops Metasploitable. They also have developed the Metasploit hacking tool. So to download it, click one of these two links. I'll go to the Rapid7 one. And then you'll need to fill out this form. Once you've done that and have filled out this form and you hit submit, it'll take you to a page that looks just like this. So to download Metasploitable 2, you can just click the download Metasploitable link here. The files are pretty big, so it may take your computer a minute. So go ahead and pause the video, and once you have it installed and also extracted, because It downloads it in a zip file. Go ahead and pause the video and then resume it once you have all of that done. Okay, all right, welcome back. So now at this point you should have VirtualBox up and running, and you should also have downloaded Metasploitable 2 and extracted the files. So I would take your extracted folder and move it to a folder that you're going to use and not going to delete. Like my downloads folder, I tend to delete regularly. So I'm going to go ahead and move it to a folder I already have, which I've labeled ISOs. So we'll just move it here. We'll come into the ISOs, and we'll double click into the Metasploitable 2 folder. So you're going to have several different files here, which is, you should have these same files that I have. So the first thing, now we're going to walk through and actually set up a Metasploitable 2 virtual machine. So in VirtualBox, go ahead and in the top left, click the new button. And then I'll name this machine Metasploitable 2. And we're going to use a Linux 64-bit distribution. So once you've done that, go ahead and click Next. And you can name yours whatever you want. I would probably suggest Metasploitable 2 since that's what it is. This is how much memory you want to give it, or RAM. This Metasploitable 2 is a pretty lightweight operating system, so you don't really need very much RAM. You can leave it here at 1 gig. I'm just going to move mine up to 2. But my computer also has 48 gigs of RAM, so I can afford it. The next thing is to choose the hard disk. Typically, when we install a virtual machine, we just stick with this middle option. In this case, we're going to click and use an existing virtual hard disk file. So click that button and then come here and click this folders button. Go to the folder that you've put Metasploitable into, and then click into the Metasploitable folder, and you should have this folder called Metasploitable. It should be about 1.8 gigs. So let's go ahead and click that. Once you have it installed, we'll hit Create. And at that point, it should pop up down here in your list. So go ahead and double click Metasploitable 2 and give it a second to load up. And now it is starting up. So if you're familiar or used Linux before, it's going to go through the same startup phase that pretty much every other Linux distro goes through. So you can go ahead and so we'll just talk a little bit about what Metasploitable is while this is loading up. Metasploitable 2 is designed as an intentionally insecure operating system. It's designed to help people hone their hacking skills, whether it's red team or hardening the machine on like a blue team side. So anyways, this is now loaded up, and it says to log in with MSF admin, and MSF admin is also the password. So we'll go ahead and do that, and you're in. Now, something important to do, there's an important setting that we want to check. So because Metasploitable 2 is intentionally insecure, we do not want to expose it to the network. So we're going to come here and we're going to go to Settings. We're going to come down here to Network. And under Adapter 1, we're going to change this to a host, either host only or an internal network. If you want Metasploitable 2 to be accessible by anything on your local network, choose internal network. If you want it to be accessible only on your host, so in this case it's my Windows machine, then choose that. So I'm going to choose host only. Do not select the other options. You can do not attach, but then you can't access it. If you do bridged adapter or NAT, it's going to expose it to the internet, which can be potentially dangerous. So we'll do host only, and we'll hit OK. And it'll save those settings, and it'll update it automatically. So then if we come in here, put if config, you can see what its internet address is. So that's the tutorial on how to install Metasploitable 2 on VirtualBox. We've walked through how to install VirtualBox and how to install Metasploitable 2. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment below, and I will respond to them as soon as I can. I usually try to respond to them within the same day. So thanks for watching this tutorial. Hope this helps you, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.
Hello. In this lecture, actually, I have installed the Metasploit framework, which is the vulnerable Linux, actually. So in Metasploitable operating system. So this is the vulnerable operating system that you can find kinds of vulnerabilities. And this Metasploit designed for exploiting. So this operating system is not secure. So in this lecture we will actually try some penetration testing in this Metasploit here. So I put and I captured installation video how these Metasploitable operating systems downloads and installs in your virtual machine. So let's get started by inputting some nmap commands. So we will conduce a port scan with Metasploit here. So for this, let's get informed with nmap here, clear nmap sv. We will also do an operating system determination here. For this we have to use sudo command here, and actually if config what is our IP address is 132, so and 024. So I will you will learn what this 24 is. So just now consider this this 24, that I am telling nmap then scan from 0 to 255. So this will scan all networks in our local area network. So because of that, as you can see here, the net mask is 255.255.255.0. So this means the 0 can change, but these will stay. So as you can see here, we had tried an nmap scan here. You can see this is our vulnerable Metasploitable operating system, as you can see here, running on Linux 2.6. Host is Metasploitable local domain here, and as you can see here, we have several open ports, which is these ports are basically vulnerable. So as you can see here, this is the Samba SMD, which has lots of exploits on it. Actually, as you can see, we have a root shell here, we have a vulnerable MySQL. Actually, I think this is the vulnerable version of MySQL. This has to some kind of exploit or what. As you can see here, we have VNC, Unreal IRC here protocols, and we have so many things that has vulnerabilities in it. So now we will do these same techniques using MSF console. So let's get started. MSF console. Here we started our MSF console here. Actually, what do you like in it? Web service? Yes. Actually, why? Is it because MSF install? Actually, let's see the desktop. MSF console. Oops. Then yes. Database. Okay. Install. Yes. MSF. Yes. We have started again. As you can fail website file, return follow message. Authentication, servlets, and as you can see here, our MSF is started. So now I will use db nmap command, db nmap here. So after that, this we can just put here basics or nmap parameters here. So consider this that we are using nmap tool. So now sv we will use here. As you remember, our Metasploit, we determined that our Metasploit IP address, local IP address, ends with 135. So nmap 192 point here. Now we are doing actually port scanning here. So now this will tell us that which ports is open and what these ports is working for. As you can see here, we have actually ports open. These ports has vulnerabilities in it, and we will break these ports here. So actually here and we can see that we run db nmap here command. So actually now I will run this command again, but with pn parameter here, pn parameter. So what this pn parameter will do is that it will give us more detailed information, and we are waiting it, and as you can see, I'm service detection, please report any incorrect results. As you can see here, actually this was pretty similar results, so never mind. So the first we had ping request, hence we had to set the pn switch in the nmap command, which denotes no ping scan here. This means no ping scan. We can see we have also defined an SV here, which denotes a version scan. So having several services up and running, we can see that the target has the ports open. As you can see here, port 445 open. So this is the NetBIOS port. So in Windows, port 445 means eternal blue, eternal romance port. So actually this port have proven to be very successful against Windows 7 and Windows Server 2008 and so on. So in this port, this port exploits this port exploit name was eternal blue. So you actually it's very vulnerable. It was very vulnerable port and service that actually the service was as I remember, this service was eternal service and used 445 ports. So in some Windows versions it can't open with it. So and that's it. So but we are using actually we are using Metasploitable as attack machine, target machine now. So if we used Windows, we can hack these ports as well. But in Linux case, this is the another Samba port. So I think this is the vulnerable as well, because this is Metasploitable. Almost where you touch, all of there are more numbers. So this is the penetration testing operating system. So since we are not sure about the operating system, we can run nmap scripts. So now actually we will do here SMB. As you can see, this is the SMBD as well, but now we will actually run the SMBD script in nmap to determine which version is using this port, actually which operating system and we is using. So let's get started. So here we will use same command, db nmap here, and pn we will add here, pn P445. This means port 445, because we will scan this, and we will scan almost another ports as well. And we will use script, because now we will add a script parameter, script, and here we will use this script that named smb os discovery, smb os discovery here, and we will give IP address of machine, target machine. So 192.168, 188.135, right? Yes, this was 35. And after that, just click enter here. And as you can see here, we haven't get information here. So let's find another ports to find more information about it. So this X11 port is for actual, I think it's graphic driver port for Linux here. As you can see here, almost we have so many ports in it.
Hi people, welcome back to the tutorial on how to hack Metasploitable 2. I'm very excited about this latest episode, and I hope you are too. Today, interestingly, we're going to look at 2 ports consecutively in order to open a shell on a vulnerable Metasploitable virtual machine. Quick heads up, NetBIOS, what is it? Well, it allows computers and applications to communicate with network hardware, but also allow data to be transmitted properly over a network. It often runs on port 139, but it could also run on ports 137, 138. The other service is Microsoft DS, Microsoft Directory Services, which is used for resource sharing on old Windows operating system, used to be XP on 2003, and also other Samba-based connection. Microsoft DS runs on port 445. The one thing they've got in common is Samba is running on top of both NetBIOS port 139 and Microsoft Directory Services on port 445. You might be wondering what Samba is. It's essentially a network protocol used mainly in Windows network for sharing resources, example files or printers over a network. Unfortunately, history is not too kind to Samba. In 2017, the WannaCry and petty ransomware attacks exploited a vulnerability in Samba 1.0 to load malware on vulnerable clients and propagate it across the networks. Obviously, Microsoft eventually released the patch, but the damage was so great that the consensus appears to recommend disabling Samba on all systems. And what we're going to do is use Metasploit to exploit it. So let's start Metasploit using MSF console. If you're familiar with the procedure, you've got to make sure that your PostgreSQL database is up and running. I've got mine up and running, and you just have to open a new terminal as I did here, and tap MSF console, and then it's going to bring up the Metasploit shell. From here, we will have to use an auxiliary scanner. The auxiliary scanner is going to be Samba. Version. So this one is just going to confirm the version of Samba which we've identified, if you remember when we carried out the whole scan, but this is to double check that we actually have the right version Samba in order to identify the right exploit for it. So let's find out what the options are. Right, so all we have to do here is to configure the IP address of our remote host. Once we've done that, we can just run it, and then surely it should be able to give us a version of the Samba we're running. It's as obvious as you guess, and it's running Samba 3.0.20, and the same output as the nmap command that we ran earlier when we did the host scan. So now what we're going to do next is to identify any exploit that match the version of Samba. We're going to be using the command search exploits. Let's bring up a different terminal here. Let's have search exploit. Right, there's two exploits here. One is a Ruby file, it's got the extension .rb, and the other one is just a text file. We're gonna use the username map script, which is the Ruby the Ruby script, and what we can do here is just go back to Metasploit and use our grep command to identify that. Right, we appear to have one exploit. It's quite old, but it's categorized as excellent, which is good news for us. So we're going to use it by using the following commands. Use one because there's only one script in there. That's fine. So let's find out what the options are for configuration. Okay, clearly it's a metapreta. No, it's not actually. It's a reverse netcat, so that's absolutely fine. So everything appears to be set for us here. The remote port is being set to 139. It could also be the other one 445. And so the only configuration that needs doing is the remote host IP address. So let's do that. And when we've done that, we can just run the exploit. Just run it as opposed to. Okay. Well, there you go. So it's, as I say, it's a reverse netcat, so it's not as obvious as a metapreta, but clearly it has given us access to the remote remote machine. So you can run commands such as Y2mate to prove that's the case. There you go. You are root, and we are indeed in high places with that level of privileges, and can run command like ls, and it's quite extraordinary, really. But yes, and we have a brilliant access to the remote machine through the shell, and you can ls into home here and see. Right, so we have MSF admin in our home folder, so it's very good. So if you guys have any questions or any suggestions, please do stick them in the comments. This tutorial is done, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.